Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban, on this Friday, the 12th of March 2021, corresponding to the 28th of Rajab, I believe, 1442. As usual, we are broadcasting live across Luton on 105.1 FM and our partner stations, including Sheffield Link FM, Peterborough, Salam, Derby, Nottingham. Assalamu alaikum to all of our listeners in all of those regions. For listeners elsewhere, UK or nationally, internationally, you can of course tune in to us via Inspire FM app, via the Inspire FM website. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, plenty of channels to get connected, to tune in tonight's show, to join tonight's kind of very, very interesting conversation. We've got a number of interesting topics for you to comment on. But do please remember to like us, join tonight's discussion, leave us your comments, whatever you want to say to us. 01582 481 822 01582 481 822 0779 481 822, inshallah. For SMS, WhatsApp messages 0779 481 822. Of course, we are broadcasting live, inshallah, from our home studios. So any technical issues, we do apologize in advance. We've got an excellent lineup this evening. We are going to be discussing Meghan and Harry interview, right? Is it a case of institutional racism? I want to hear your thoughts. Did you listen? Did you hear the interview? What did you make of the interview, right? We've got a number of guests we're going to be discussing. Some of them are going to be arguing for, and some of them are going to be arguing against. Let them argue. I want to hear your thoughts. 0779 481 822. The Meghan Harry interview. What did you make of it? We've also got a very important topic we're going to be discussing later, and that is about family ties, right? Family ties, inshallah, right? How many times have we heard of examples of family ties being cut, right? We're going to be discussing that in detail, and we're going to be looking at some of the scenarios and some of the problems that we face. We're going to be covering a story from Switzerland which has banned the wearing of the burqa and the niqab in public places. Last but not least, Supreme Court decision denies access to justice, say campaigners to Shamima Begum. That's going to be the last story. We're going to go into the Maghrib Azan immediately. And when we come back, we're going to be going into the main discussion, inshallah. So don't go away. 0779 481 822. We'll be back right after the Maghrib Azan, inshallah ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salatul Maghrib.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज़े मग़रिब का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 72 1110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. It is me, Hafiz Shaban. Of course, I was away for the Maghrib Salah. Inshallah ta'ala. Okay, good to be back and good to be in the steering wheel, behind the steering wheel, metaphorically speaking, I must admit, before we start getting complaints from our good old listeners. Right, we are going to be discussing, let's do a deep dive straight away. Right, apparently, hopefully you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Yes, okay, you can hear me. Okay, alhamdulillah. All right, great. All right, we're going to go straight into the conversation, straight into the lead story this evening, and that is, of course, the Harry and the Meghan and the Harry interview. Of course, it has raised eyebrows globally, internationally. A lot of comments have been made in the media, in different sectors of society. And there's been resignations, and people have had to walk out of their jobs because of what people have said or not said. Anyway, the broadcast was on CBS on early hours of the Monday, I believe, watched by an audience of 11 million UK viewers again on Monday night. And almost, wow, incredible. ITV announced that Piers Morgan was leaving the show after Ofcom received over 41,000 public complaints about his comments. A statement has been released by Buckingham Palace on behalf of the Queen, saying that the whole family was saddened to learn how challenging things had been, and adding that in particularly some of the issues that have been raised, that of race, are concerning. So we've got a number of issues, that have a lot of things that are happening. Like I said to you, it's an incredible time. What do we learn? We learn in the couple's interview that they actually left the UK because a large part of that factor was racism, right? That was driving that decision. And then also the Duchess, Meghan's mental health battle, suicidal thoughts. The most explosive element of the interview was the royal household had concerns over how dark-skinned the couple's son Archie might be. And last but not least, Meghan says that she suggested that her son was denied the title of prince because of his mixed race. A lot of stuff emerging there in the interview. Of course, we've issued, or at least we've read out the comment with regards to from Buckingham Palace and their position on the story. We're not passing any opinions as such, but interested to hear our panelists this evening. Right, we've got a number of different panelists. Yep, I have already read the household statement out. Thank you very much, producers. Right, we've got a number of guests this evening. Let me go to my guests. We have got Dr. Musharraf Hussain, we've got Professor Kamal, we've got Basit Mahmood, and we've got another guest, which I will introduce shortly. But let me go first to Basit. Basit, welcome to the show, Friday Night Live. You're not finished with the show. Great to have you this evening. I saw your article. Of course, you were pointing your finger towards the institutional racism that exists within media, right? We've got sport, we've got media. Now we've got fingers being pointed towards the monarchy, and it's not recently. I mean, that's been written and discussed for a long time, to be honest with you, by all sorts of broadcasters and academics.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to respond to the, I don't know if listeners are aware, but the Society of Editors statement that caused a huge kind of, I would say, unprecedented kind of split within sections of the media. Because what happened was, moving away from Harry and Meghan, and this is why I wrote the piece, that they issued a statement, a blanket kind of defense of all, the entire media. Basically, they said that, the UK media is not bigoted, and it would be ridiculous to suggest that it was. And I nearly fell off my chair in that bit, because if you talk to me, as a journalist, and one of the reasons I went into it, amongst talking about working class issues and highlighting issues of hypocrisy, was to tackle Islamophobia. And it's, when I saw Ian Murray say that he thought it was a needle in the haystack, he went on the BBC Victoria Derbyshire, gave him a few examples of some headlines, and he said that there's a few, these were his words, needle in the haystack, or a few bad. But you look at the research, you've had front page stories about 1 in 5 Muslims supporting ISIS, which was then misleading, and they apologized for. You had front page stories about Muslims forcibly adopting Christian children, again inaccurate. You've had stories about 84% of grooming gangs being against South Asian men, again inaccurate. It's a bit more than just a needle.
No, I'm absolutely, totally concur. I understand where that's coming from. I mean, I saw the headlines and it was quite incredible. I mean, the idea of the Meghan and the Harry interview, right? It's not really about the family politics, because family politics exists in every household, right? The royal household is not unique in that sense, that they have got their own fair share of problems, but it's the underlying issues, isn't it, that really have surfaced. That are the question, you know, that's where the fingers are being pointed, and people are discussing it. The issue of racism, not only within the UK and in particularly against Meghan, but again within the royal, you know, within the household, right? But also with regards to her mental health battle and the suicidal thoughts, and the fact that she apparently it cannot be addressed because it wouldn't look good on the institution of the monarchy. That's incredible stuff, isn't it? What did you make of that comment, Basit?
I mean, the specifics about her mental health. I mean, the sad thing is, I think some people in the media straight away said, and I think it's an indictment of some of the columnists we have, that, you know, whatever your views and opinions on someone, you don't say, I don't believe you, and they're talking about the mental health and feeling, you know, the way they are, feeling like they want to take their life. I think that's silly to talk about that. But I mean, again, as far as the allegations against the royal family are concerned, I mean, all I can say is, as a journalist, is that the royal family said they'd look at it, because obviously they said that they'll deal with it privately, look at it, and that they believe there's been differences in, or, you know, the way it was, the story or the incident we told. So, but I think more widely, I think it's opened up a conversation. And that's what I really want to do, especially in the media. You know, I don't think I've seen where editors, and this is the interesting thing, this woke left, right? This is really the term of abuse. Anyone who asks for equality is described as woke left. So basically, you dismiss them as woke left editors. But, you know, if the editors of the Financial Times, the Evening Standard, the Huffington Post, you know, these are the Daily Mirror, even basically, they've said that we don't agree with the statement that you can claim that there's no bigoted reporting in the press. So
Sure. I mean, that's well known, but let me turn to my other guests. We've had Dr. Musharraf rejoin us too, and then we've got Professor Kamal. I want to go firstly to Professor Kamal. Professor Kamal, welcome to Friday Night Live. It'll be interesting actually to see, you know, from your perspective, you know, and especially, you know, with the kind of international links that you have, how the international media have taken on this particular story that's been covered over the last couple of days. Is obviously dominated the headlines for the last couple of days.
I mean, I think it's important to start with what we mean by institutional racism, because that was the topic I was asked to come and comment on. And the definition that the Race Relations Institute of Race Relations has is that it is institutional racism is that which covertly or overtly resides in the policies, procedures, operations, and culture of public or private institutions, reinforcing individual prejudices and being reinforced by them in turn. So that's the background, because that's the topic that you asked me to come and comment on. Internationally, the royal family in the UK still has creates interest. Whenever there is a story about the royal family in the UK, it creates interest. Here, there was also the linkage with the fact that Prince Harry's mother was Princess Diana, again, who had an extremely high profile when she was alive. And even at that, if you go back to that, we shouldn't forget that towards the end of her life, she had a very deep friendship with an Egyptian millionaire, if you like, fired. So, and at the time there were no particular allegations of racism. So, I mean, at least not in that what happened in the interview we heard recently, that one of the people concerned came out and said she felt she had encountered racism. So, and it is this I think sometimes very unwritten kind of, although the definition has policies, etc. in it, it is when there is, if you're working in an organization where there's some sort of a perceived glass ceiling that, if you like, some BME people feel they just can't breach. You don't see enough representation in senior management. But it also, of course, applies to women in many instances. It isn't simply in terms of race. So I think internationally there's been a lot of interest in the story as a whole, particularly because Meghan Markle had her own, if you like, profile. But it's brought out, it's the linkage as well in terms of history that belies Harry and his brother.
Right. Oh, okay. Let me go to my other guest that we've got also. We got Dr. Musharraf Hussain. I'm going to go on to Dr. Musharraf shortly. I mean, I saw your article, Dr. Musharraf, and I was a bit surprised, actually, to be honest with you, a bit surprised because you've taken a completely different twist to the story, right? And I'm actually surprised that you've actually completely missed out some very, very important points, right? That have actually, that have come to surface, right? Her mental health issues and her mental health battle, right? Suicidal thoughts, not having any help that was being offered, right? Harry himself has suggested and confirmed that they left UK because of the racism, and the large part of the reason why they left the UK was the racism in the media, right? And then we've got his wife sitting right next to him, who's also indicating something similar with regards to within the family household. And then you've written an article saying, sorry, I don't believe any of that, and there's no racism in the royal family. I mean, that's quite incredible, almost similar to what Piers Morgan's almost said. Dr. Musharraf.
Well, first of all, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Professor Kamal, and sorry for that unceremonious entrance of mine. Okay. Yes. In that article of mine, which was published as an opinion in New York Post, I was actually just talking about one particular issue, which was about racism. And I have actually written another article in which I talk about the wider implications of deleterious and really, it's actually a very devastating interview for socio-spiritual well-being of our young people, and therefore I regard it as a very dangerous interview. But with regards to the racism, let me answer your question, Hafiz Shaban. Shaban, I just wonder, are you still reading beautifully? You know, you came to my masjid about 15 years ago and did the Taraweeh. Are you still really like that?
Yes, alhamdulillah.
I would love to hear that, all right? But coming back to this racism, well, listen, how do you tell somebody's a racist? Well, you tell it from what they say, what they believe, how they behave. Simple as that, you know? So your behavior, your actions, your attitude, what you say shows that. And when we look at the royal family, and particularly, the Queen, it was interesting, Meghan in her interview, I must confess my major sin that I committed by watching that, because this is a gossip. No doubt, it was a gossip. You should not listen to gossips. Gossips are haram. This is, something which is absolutely haram. I watched it because I thought I have to answer people's questions tomorrow. They have to watch it, and so I could comment. It was so sad. She said, that she was sitting with the Queen in the carriage in one of their visits, and it was cold, and the Queen has a practice of putting a blanket on her legs, and she said to me, Meghan, you have this blanket as well with me.
Right, Dr. Musharraf, unfortunately, we don't.
Is that a racist? Is that somebody is a racist?
I think Dr. Musharraf, she didn't specifically say it was the Queen. She said someone within the royal family. I mean,
no. She said Queen. No. Anyway, whoever it is, listen. No, it's a Queen. It's just a Queen. Anyway, listen, we don't want to argue about nonsense.
But the point here is that the Queen has never acknowledged, has she not, the monarchy's historical role in supporting the black slave trade? The slave trade, the monarchy.
Listen, you're going back into history. Listen.
No. Hang on, Dr. Musharraf. What about the Duke of Edinburgh? The Duke of Edinburgh, the Queen's husband, is known for his controversial comments for so many times on so many occasions. How can you simply overlook that completely and just say, just because they've given a couple of people an OB, that means that there's no racism?
Asaf, you're going off the point. Listen,
right? What is
if you look at historically, I'll tell you, yes, historically, there is tyranny in any monarchy anywhere in the world. There is tyranny in every Mughal regime, the Ottoman regime. You can find so much tyranny and oppression and zulm of the highest order anywhere. Listen, we are talking about what we experience, what I experience, what you experience. What is the proof? You know, when you have the royal family is a part of hundreds of amazing charities that look after the rights of the downtrodden, the poor. They stand up for the, you know, the Prince Charles' famous talk at Oxford Center for Islamic Studies in 1993. Amazing man, you know, what he said about Islam, what he said about, many people actually thought he's a Muslim, all right? And I've met him since then many times. And, you know, you do see this, he's somebody who accepts pluralism. He in fact said, I'm not a defender of faith. I'm not a defender of Christianity. I'm a defender of faiths. All right. So listen, I think you have to have some proofs. You know, when we must have proofs. There is no proof of this kind, neither in their saying. Now, after all, you know, the Queen is the head of 54 countries of Commonwealth, which has yellow people in it, black people in it, brown people in it, white people in it, all races and all kinds of people.
Dr. Musharraf, now that you bring a history into the contemporary realm, why is she head of the 54 countries, sorry?
Well, that's called
because of the colonial past. So you can't detach the history.
Colonialism was undoubtedly colonialism was oppression. Colonialism was evil. We are not living in a colonial period now. All right,
my turn to talk. When it comes to the contemporary period, you can't just galvanize on it and ignore history. When your whole institution has been upon a very dark history, you got to acknowledge it. And the point is, a lot of the commentators are writing is that the monarchy has not acknowledged its history and its roots, and it needs to do that. But let's move on. I agree. Let's move on. Let me go back to Basit. Basit, are you still with us? I can't see you.
Can you hear me?
Let's go to the other point, right? Which is obviously Harry's comment, and Harry's comment was of course around the media, right? And the racism element within the media, right? I mean, later on we're going to be discussing, you know, the case of Shamina Begum, and a lot of people are saying racism within the judicial system of the UK. Then you got sports, right? I mean, and then you got the police. I mean, you can list all the institutions where people talk about, you know, institutional racism. All right, is this institutional? I mean, every weekend you see taking the knee, right, in football, but it hasn't, you know, it has done nothing to kick out the issue of racism within support. So my question for you here is where does it go next? Because the Islamic community, in terms of Islamophobia, are experiencing this, you know, as victims in the media at the moment. Harry's, you know, citing this. Isn't it time to acknowledge these, you know, kind of dark realities in our cupboards and deal with them rather than just kind of try to, you know, put them under the carpet?
I agree, and I think it links back to your wider point. Just one quick comment on Dr. Musharraf Hussein's colonial legacy is in the past. Well, I think it leaves a legacy as well, doesn't it? And if you look at the way France, I'm sorry, but you can't really, if you look at the way France treats the Muslim communities in its country right now, its relationship to its former colonies, you know, it's still through that lens. Although I agree with you that prejudice and bigotry exist in all walks of life, but I don't think it's easy to just sweep it away and say that's all in the past, you know. But with regards to, I think acknowledging is the first step. You can't really move beyond, you know, if the other side, whoever you're talking to in society, you know, unless you acknowledge the other side's hurt and pain, whatever issue it is, you can't move beyond that. So I think it's more than just acknowledgement. You're asking me, where do we go now? Look, I've written countless stories, right, on Islamophobia, and this really annoys me because I don't like writing about Islamophobia, believe it or not. No one likes talking about racism. Believe it or not, it's not something I enjoy. But you know, when the Muslim Council of Britain handed over reports, and this is a very important point about the Conservative Party members, this was evidence. Dr. Musharraf asked for proof. These are proofs. You can check it. It's in their indexes. Conservative Party members spoke about throwing Muslims off bridges, forcibly sterilizing them. You know, over 50% said they had a negative view of Muslims. And when you've got that, and then you highlight it as a journalist, because no other journalist is, you highlight it, right, and then nothing happens. Because believe it or not, some forms of prejudice are more profitable than others. You can win elections, as we've seen across the European continent at the moment, in France, in Holland, they've got an election next week. We've seen it in Switzerland, the banning of the burqa. You can basically say whatever the hell you want about Muslims, and you can get votes out of it. And if that is proof of modern day racism, I don't know what is. But I don't think the solution just lies in acknowledgement, though. The solution lies in our communities as well, getting involved with processes like the media, getting involved with politics. It's easy to complain from the sidelines, but you need to get involved to try and change the narrative.
Yep. Okay. We're running out of time. We've got about 6-7 minutes left. I want to go back to Dr. Musharraf and Professor Kamal. I will come to you very, very soon. Dr. Musharraf, let's talk about some practical ways. Like, look, we know this menace of racism exists in all institutions. You said in all societies. I totally agree. It exists in all societies, Muslim or non-Muslim societies. We know this menace exists everywhere. It exists before Islam and it exists today. In modern day Britain, where the political parties, conservative parties, Labour parties, the royal family, NHS, look at the COVID crisis. I mean, one of the research that was done about Bami, nationalities or people from the Bami background actually being more prone to kind of infections, and and there was an element of an investigation in terms of the NHS, and is there a racist overtone there somewhere? Judiciary, police, media. How do we address this problem, Dr. Musharraf, of the menace of racism?
Yeah. Well, I do believe that there has been, and some of the British institutions are institutionally racist, and as Professor Kamal very eloquently defined what institutional. One of those is certainly political parties. They are certainly institutionally racist. And when they come into power, they exert their rotten power in a very tyrannical way. And we are seeing that with the Conservative Party at this very moment. They are, for example, this unprecedented appointment of William Shawcross as the leader of Prevent is an obvious example of institutional racism in Conservative Party. No doubt about it. Why? Because this is a man who dislikes Muslims. He openly, has been a real enemy of Muslim charities. He has openly described Muslims as the most dreadful and terrifying people. Now, really, when you've got, and the government is appointing him as a judge, as somebody who's going to help them to, so there you are. I do believe there is, but no. So I've been in. We've been working on how to boycott this review and how to get people to speak out against it, inshallah, and we will.
Okay.
But I think the most important thing is two things here. I think one, we need to be resilient and not so soft and let small things take over. Secondly, we must build bridges. We must win friends. We must get the right kind of people with us to support us. So, we need the right kind of people with us. We need the right friends with us. We can't isolate ourselves and say, the 4 million Muslims by themselves can get justice. No.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Musharraf, for that. We've got a couple of messages coming in. Okay, firstly, we've got a message on WhatsApp. My question is, why would Harry lie and shame his family and shame his family name? Also, have we forgotten Diana's interview? She also had health issues after getting married. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to address the mental health issue side of it. Thank you very much for that. We've got a couple of disclaimers coming in. The Conservative Party is not here to defend themselves, which we know and we accept, and not to mention the royal household is not here to defend themselves. But we did issue and we did read out the statement that the royal household has issued on this subject matter. Thank you very much. Okay, let me go back to Professor Kamal. Professor Kamal, you gave us a fantastic definition of racism earlier, institutional racism earlier, and I appreciate that. How do we address it, in the academic circles? I mean, tell us about your experience with in the academic institution kind of circles of this menace of racism, and how is it being addressed within the academic spheres, Professor Kamal?
Now, again, I think I came to this country at the age of 15, and I remember when I was a young student, if you like, that I did encounter some racism. It wasn't on a daily basis,
Right.
I think the country then came a long way toward moving away from that kind of attitude towards, through education, through interacting with people of different color and so on, to the extent that I think, I mean, the British society, I think, is a very tolerant society.
Yeah.
But there are sort of, you can point to points in time when things changed. Certainly the Brexit issue brought out a lot of discussion about racism, about immigration, and so on. And so even and within organizations like universities, I think there are lots of policies. There are people who want to ensure, and again, I don't limit it to racism, but even for women's rights in terms of progression and promotion, they come together. Because if you look at any organization and you look at the top, if you like, leaders of that institution, it used to be almost entirely men, white men who'd come through a particular route. Although attempts have been made to improve that, it hasn't really sufficiently developed to the way that we want, whether it's for women or it is for, in terms of people from different backgrounds. It's incumbent on all of us, first of all, to acknowledge that the British society we live in is a tolerant society, far more than many others. There's no doubt about that. You refer to France, and you can look at that as a comparator, but that it is incumbent on all of us, white, black, brown, Muslim, Christian, Jew, whoever, to actually reach out to each other, to understand each other much better than those who want to divide us, want us to be divided. It's incumbent on all of us, but we must be vigilant. Racism is a real scourge on society. So I finish by saying it is incumbent on all of us to work to end it, to get a far better understanding between different cultures, between different colors, and so on. Because at the end of the day, COVID didn't distinguish between black, brown, or white when it took it away.
Fantastic, Professor Kamal. A very good point to finish on. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we have run out of time. So can I get offer my respects and thanks to everyone, Dr. Musharraf Hussain, Basit Mahmood, Professor Kamal. Thank you very much for joining us this evening and contributing to tonight's discussion. Right, listeners, that was the Harry and Meghan interview conversation that we were having earlier. Really, very interesting conversation there with Dr. Musharraf Saab, Professor Kamal, and Basit, our local journalist. Really interesting thoughts there. I want to hear your opinions. Thank you very much for those who have joined tonight's discussion and commented on 01582 481822 07779481822 is the number to call on or to WhatsApp on WhatsApp your messages, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll try to get those included into tonight's conversation. Right, time to move on to our next topic, and this is going to be a very hopefully a very interesting topic, inshallah, and a topic which there's probably no one who's listening to the radio show tonight that who isn't aware of the individual, who personally isn't involved, or close family members are not involved, right? That in some way we have experienced family politics, right? So when we experience family politics, how do we deal with family politics, right? That's my question. How do we deal with family politics, right? It can be it could be a nightmare, right? And a lot of times, there's injustices. There's a lot of time there's feelings. People are hurt. People's feelings are trampled upon. People's rights are trampled upon, right? Sometimes we feel grieved. We feel wronged. And a lot of the times, the way we go about dealing with this issue is by cutting family ties, right? We cut family ties. So someone's taken, something that didn't belong to them. All right, I'm not speaking to him anymore. Someone's said something to you that perhaps they shouldn't have said something, right? You cut family ties, right? There's been differences of opinion, cutting family ties. And it's a menace that really goes across horizontally our community, right? And I personally right? Personally, I've heard of so many cases where siblings are not speaking to one another, brother is not speaking to brother, sister is not speaking to another sister, and even to the extent, right, where children are not speaking to their parents. I mean, that's absolutely incredible, right? Not speaking to their parents. I mean, imagine, a son not speaking to his father, or a mother, or a daughter or a son not speaking to their mother, right? I mean, that's the kind of craziness that we are actually seeing in today's society. What's happening? What's going on? What's the reason for this, right? Let's try to explore this. Not only what is the reason for this, but what are the implications, the mental implications, psychological implications, health implications, on our well-being, on us as individuals, on us as a community, as a family, etc., right? So before I go to my experts, right, and fire off some questions to my experts, I want my listeners to really message in, right? You don't have to give your name. Message in, share your example, right? What has driven these kind of wedges to be, to creep in, right? And what your thoughts are on this. 01582481822 77794818822 is the message for SMS, WhatsApp messages. I want to go to, firstly, inshallah, brother Ajmal Masroor, who of course needs no introduction, but nevertheless, let's give him an introduction. An imam, an author, public speaker, and also, mashallah, a relationship counselor. Assalamu alaikum, brother Ajmal Masroor.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, akhi. How are you, mashallah?
I'm very, very well, alhamdulillah. Forgive me, I'm making some fish while I'm talking to you. So I'm descaling a fish as I'm talking to you, as I'm doing this interview. That's why I don't have the video on. Go on.
Right, that's fine. It would have been good to actually see you descaling that fish at the same time. But anyway, all right. Hopefully, we've got your attention and your mind. I mean, this is a topic that's very close to me as an individual, brother Ajmal Masroor. I've seen it in so many of my family members, extended family, and I've heard some, like I said, crazy examples where where children are not speaking to their parents, and vice versa. Right? It's a menace, and I know it's on the loose. How do we address this, brother Ajmal? How do we tackle this? Where do we start from?
Obviously, it comes from pain. Often people don't know how to deal with pain, so they get angry, and anger becomes a smoke screen, or they deal with running away from the issue or excluding people, cutting them off. Pain is not an issue. Pain is not an easy emotion to deal with. We're not trained. We don't get teachings from our families. Emotional intelligence is something that we don't teach our children. And also sharing our pain and vulnerability is something that we don't like. So those are the reasons why I believe people cut each other off. Obviously, as a Muslim, we know the rulings very well. Our Prophet of Allah ﷺ said, if you cut ties of relatives, it is like you've cut the ties with Allah. Cutting ties with your relatives, whether they're blood relatives or extended relatives, cutting ties means you maliciously, deliberately, you go out of your way to exclude them from your life, from your social, from your everyday or whatever time frequency you have. It does not mean you have to live with them every day or call them every day. If it's maliciously done, intentionally done, then it becomes a sin. Rasulullah said, I can't stop talking to my brother, forget about a relative, for no more than 3 days because of anger or malice. Now, we know from the life of the companions that they also suffered the same. When Rasulullah's wife, Aisha, was slandered, and we know the guy who was at the forefront of the slandering, he was one of the relatives of Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr being the father of Aisha. And Abu Bakr, when he heard the guy has been not only slandering, but spreading the rumors against Aisha, and Abu Bakr has been sponsoring this guy all his life, he made the promise that he will never pay this guy a single penny more. A verse of the Quran was revealed condemning such an action. And Abu Bakr was told by Rasulullah, and Abu Bakr then said, I will never ever stop paying this guy, even though he has destroyed or he attempted to destroy my own daughter's reputation. So, brothers and sisters, my point is very simple. No matter how much pain somebody causes, what we don't have the right to do is to cut them off our life, unless they are so toxic, so abusive, that their company and their behavior will destroy you damage your family, and take you away from Islam and Allah.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna come back to you, Brother Ajmal. Jazakallah for those introductory comments. All right. So let me go to my next guest. Hopefully I'll say the name correctly. Is it Jihad Mursi?
It is, yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Jihad Mursi. Welcome to Friday Night Live. So of course you are you're involved in online counseling service, Standout, right? Designed to support the youth with the difficulties of life and to become outstanding. You work with youth towards an optimistic future through developing positive coping strategies and enhancing life skills. Fantastic. Just the right person that I need to be speaking to, Sister Jihad. Take us through the kind of dynamics that I've just highlighted, right? I mean, my listeners, in some of the regions that we broadcast in, whether it's Luton, Sheffield, Nottingham, and elsewhere. I mean, these are areas, regions with very, very strong Asian communities, and this kind of family politics in Asian community is just rife, right? You've got family politics. You got fallout from family politics. You got fallout from, as Brother Ajmal Mansoor was saying, pain, hurt, financial irregularities, injustices happening, and even the youth from a youth, specifically from a youth perspective, right? I know, for example, a number of youth, right? In extended family, in the community, who probably don't speak to their fathers, for example, for a number of reasons, right? For a number of reasons. Maybe the father walked out from the family household, many years ago when they were young, never contacted them, never provided any financial support, etc., etc., etc. And years later, now they've become mature, they've become baligh, they've got a sense of right and wrong. How does such a person who's gone through that experience and who knows his father is in the same town, how does he deal with that? Even from a mental perspective, to be honest with you, guide us through those dilemmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, Jazakallah khair for having me today, and that's a very, very important topic. And as a counselor to the youth, this comes up quite a lot, and not only from one specific region, all different cultures and traditions in different countries. As an online counselor, I deal with young people from different parts of the world, and this issue does come up quite a lot. And the impact it has on, and I'll speak specifically from the youth perspective, it has a huge impact on them even when they become adults, as well, as you mentioned. So it could be something that happened as a child and it gets carried away with them until they become adults. Now, that's why it's something very, very serious and something very important to consider and to address. Family plays a huge role. So what I would say is that besides what Brother Ajmal has already mentioned, is communication is key, is very important. Of course, things happen where there are conflicts in the family. We can't avoid it. It happens in every household. But how we deal with it is very important. Now, if we try to reduce conflict as much as possible, great. If conflicts occur, communication is very, very important. To have that communication with the children. I mean, even starting from as children, parents communicating with the young people, with the children, finding out what's happening in their lives, communicating with them. Family meals are quite good timings for that, where we have discussions together, check on each other. The young people, because I deal with them a lot, they're really, really suffering, and they're keeping it inside them. And they're just waiting for somebody to ask them how they're doing, what's happening, what has happened in their day. So that's why I say communication is key.
Right, Jihad, I just want to stop you, and because I want you to share some of the information, right, with us, right? So I mean, you talk about the youth, you talk about a lot of you're experiencing a lot of this. Share some general experience that you're seeing, some of the trends that you're seeing, or which are right at the top for us to be aware of.
Yeah, I'll give an example. For example, one of the young people that I had experience with, she experienced bullying at school, and I know this is something happening outside the family, but the family plays a big role in that. Communicating with the young people, finding out what is happening in their lives, what's happening outside school. Now, this young girl, she had bullying happening in her life when she was in year 5, and she came to me 5 years later, because she started having conflicts with her mother, but exploring it further and further, going deeper into it, we realize that the root of the problem is the bullying that she has experienced. And unfortunately, because it was neglected, it developed into further problems, to conflicts with the family, conflicts with peers. She's not able to develop, her social interactions with people. So one issue that happens from a young age, it can develop in so many other issues. And the difficulties that we have sometimes is that what I call is that dealing with the symptoms rather than the roots. Now, if we deal with the symptom and neglected the root, the symptoms will keep coming back again and again. So that's why it's very important from a young age is to deal, to have that communication with the young people, to find out what's happening in their lives, to deal with it on time before it develops further into other conflicts and other problems. I mean, this is just one example, but there are a variety of different, problems that are happening. Unfortunately, it starts to break the family down, having, the daughter not having communication with the mother, and it just starts to develop further and further. And as you mentioned as well, a child not talking to the father, is very, very important to go down to the roots and find out exactly where the problems have occurred from in order to deal with the root and the symptom of it.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sis Jihad. And in terms of the so you talk about the young people, the youth coming on. How do you advise, and what do you advise the youngsters, and how, do you find them attentive? When you're exploring, root cause, doing kind of root cause analysis and making those kind of suggestions.
Definitely, to be honest, the young people are screaming for help. They really want somebody to listen to them. And that's why I say family plays a big role in that. If the family support is not there, and I'm sure, there's a lot of family support there, but trying to make sure, we provide a very strong support system from the family is key, because if we don't provide that to the young people, everything is there, social media is there, wrong friendship is there. And that's the worst thing that we would want to happen, because if they go to the wrong sources of help, we lose our children. So that's why I say family support is very important. I'll give another example as well of some of the young people who come to me. They've already tried so many things in their lives. And what I've noticed that with those young people who have already tried so many different strategies to help themselves, they have a very strong support system at home. So that's why it's very, very important to have that. And there's a difference between family support and peer support and social support. They all help, but the biggest kind of support is family. So those young people who already, I explore further to find out if they have that family support. I find that they are able to help themselves. And research has actually showed that those with strong family support system, they have higher levels of well-being, better coping skills, and longer and healthier life. So we can't control, us having conflicts at home or what's happening outside home, but what we can control is the support that we provide our young people. So if we can provide them with that support system, they will find ways of helping themselves. So that's why I emphasize on that support system at home.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Sister Jihad. Let me go back to Brother Ajmal Masood. Brother Ajmal, hopefully you're still with us.
Welcome, sir. Yes, I'm still here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Alhamdulillah, bro. Okay. So we've got a question from one of the listeners. The importance of a single family unit, and what advice he would give to families who are going through problems, Brother Ajmal. A bit general, I must say. The question.
Single family unit. You mean?
Yeah.
So is it single parent family or single?
Yeah. I assume it. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So single parent family is, of course, on its own a huge challenge, and we must support our brothers and sisters who have that kind of a situation, because one of the parents are playing both the roles, and that's not easy, by any stretch of our imagination, especially if you've got children who have special needs and who need more support, etc. So my sympathy for them, and we need to be out there supporting them. Muslim communities' biggest failure is that we have not created sufficient infrastructure to supporting different levels of problems and challenges that we are facing as a community. I'd say in our life, there are a number of things that we need to invest in. There is a verse of the Quran where Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. This is a very profound verse. Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ, and then they will be successful or be happy. Man zakaha, who invest in the purity of themselves. And then waqad khaba man dassaha, and they will be miserable and unhappy for those who buried themselves in the depth of darkness. This verse actually talks about something very interesting, and that is we need to invest in the purity of our soul by harnessing our natural fitrah, children's fitrah, our goodness, our many blessings Allah has given, our brain, our soul, our spirit, our abilities to communicate. All of these things, we need to nurture them, harness them, and use them to be able to express our thoughts and our feelings to one another. And those of us who don't invest in these things and bury our head in the sand like an ostrich, hoping that the sandstorm would pass, we are actually burying ourselves in the depth of darkness. Our community's failure is that we do not emphasize on investing in the goodness that we have. In our psychological world, in the world of psychology, we call it emotional intelligence. The lack of emotional intelligence, the less intelligent you are emotionally, the more likely you will be suffering from all sorts of complex psychological, mental health issues. I beg our community, Muslim community, especially your listeners, invest in your emotional intelligence. How to deal with your emotion, how to name them, how to recognize them, how to know what symptoms to look forward to or look for, and also the emotions of others, not just yours but others, and how to respond to them. I don't know whether you have ever been taught emotional intelligence when you were born. Our emphasis is learn how to read, how to write, get the highest GCSE level grade, go to university, get a good job. But nobody ever teaches us how to be emotionally intelligent. So Islam teaches this over and over again.
Brother Ajmal, can you just expand? Okay, what do you mean emotional intelligence, right? Some of our listeners will be thinking, okay, I mean, even myself. Okay, I've got a question. What do you mean? What do you mean? Come on, let's be a bit.
Let me explain to you.
All right.
Yeah, let me explain to you. Did you read yesterday's Guardian newspaper article that talked about how women have been facing abuse in this country?
Not yesterday's, no.
Did you read that Guardian article?
No, I didn't.
So there was an article yesterday in the Guardian newspaper. Now, let me just give you the background. When I read that Guardian article, how did I feel? I felt very angry. So how did I feel? I felt angry. What did I feel angry about? How we have let our sisters so miserably down. So how we have let our woman down. I felt very angry about that. Against who did I feel anger? I felt anger against men in general and my own self for being part of that gender who did that to women. What is the emotion involved here? It's called anger. Do I recognize anger? Yes, I do. What symptoms do I have when I'm angry? I feel my heart is racing fast. My blood is rushing to my head. I feel like doing something, screaming at somebody. I feel like, I feel like doing things. I feel very upset. Knowing my emotion is about recognizing the emotion by name, recognizing the emotion by symptoms, by feelings, and then knowing what to do with it. So when I was angry yesterday, what should I do about it? Should I go and start beating up men? No, I didn't do that. I wrote an article. I gave my khutbah about it today. I decided to write about it, to speak about it. I had a discussion with my children around the dinner table yesterday. So emotional intelligence is recognizing your emotion by name, knowing the symptoms, knowing how to manage yours, and also recognizing other people's emotions and knowing how to name them, recognizing their symptoms and knowing how to manage their emotions. So it's called emotional intelligence. We should invest in it more often by talking about it, by demonstrating in our behavior at our home with our children.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Brother Ajmal Masroor and Sister Jihad Mursi. We're going to go into a commercial break, inshallah, for a couple of minutes. I hope, inshallah, you will be able to hold on so that we can come back and continue this conversation for a few more minutes, inshallah ta'ala. If possible, I will let the producers just speak to you offline and just confirm those arrangements. But listeners, we are about to go into a commercial break. Just a reminder, you are with me, Hafiz Shaban, on Friday Night Live. It is Friday the 12th of March 2021 is, I believe, corresponding to the 28th of Rajab. We're going to go into a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to try to continue speaking with Brother Ajmal Masroor and Sister Jihad. We are speaking about family ties, right? Family ties, the importance of family ties. Don't go away. If you've got any questions, do message us, inshallah. We'll come back and continue the conversation. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM.
Inspire FM. Inspire 105.1 FM.
My name is Jamal Mahmood. I'm a writer and poet, and my debut collection is called Little Boy Blue, which you can find online. Listening to me today on Inspire FM.
Every step aside, every road crossed to avoid passing on the pavement, every gap we mind on public transport, every space left between shopping trolleys, everyone who keeps a safe distance if they have to go out is helping stop the spread of COVID-19, because around 1 in 3 people who have it have no symptoms and are spreading it without knowing. Everything we're doing is making a difference. Let's keep going. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
Luton's most luxurious venue for Asian weddings is now bigger and better than ever before. With 2 venues to choose from, Venue Central can provide the ultimate setting for your wedding. 2 huge venues, 1 high standard, right in the centre of Luton. Visit us online today at venuecentral.co.uk or call us now on 01582 451 767. Venue Central, affordable luxury in a central location.
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
MK Tiles and Bathroom. We're the specialists for porcelain and ceramic tiles. Visit our new showroom today with all the latest tiles on display. We have a huge range of wall and floor tiles, and we guarantee to beat any genuine quotes. Plus, for a limited time only, you can save up to 25% off selected items. So visit the new MK Tiles and Bathroom showroom, now at 5A Riddy Lane, Luton, LU3 2AD, or call 01582 50 30 30. What does our next generation of doctors, engineers and accountants have in common? Their journey started with a teacher. Are you a graduate looking at career opportunities? Do you have a passion for your subject and want to share it with others? If your answer is yes, then you have the key to unlocking the potential. At Chiltern Training Group, we offer both primary and secondary teacher training. Give us a call on 01582 493 680 or visit ctg.ac.uk. Knowledge builds knowledge. Share yours.
Help us to do more for the most destitute families of the world by becoming a supporter of our Feed the Fasting campaign. Running in 12 countries, our Mission to Feed program provides support to some of the most disadvantaged children and families. We provide them with the essential food items in Ramadan to chase away the pains of hunger and spread hope. From £30, join us in saving lives now on 0114 365 4454 or go online to familiesrelief.org.uk. Help us to keep families together.
Anybody who believes in Allah and the last day should not harm his neighbor. And anybody who believes in Allah and the last day should entertain his guests generously. And anybody who believes in Allah and the last day should talk what is good or keep quiet. Reported by Bukhari and Muslim.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban. It is Friday the 12th of March, corresponding to the 28th of Rajab, and we are Inspire FM, and this is Friday Night Live. We are broadcasting live on Luton on 105.1 FM and across our partner stations. 01582481822. 07779 481 822 07779 481 822 for any SMS, WhatsApp messages. do join tonight's discussion and conversation. I want to really hear, thoughts from my listeners with regards to the current topic that we are discussing, and that is, of course, around family ties, right? Family ties, you love it, don't you? Family members, and subhanallah, it's never easy, is it, to maintain family ties? It's never meant to be easy, to be honest with you. I'm going to ask Brother Ajmal when we go back to speaking to him shortly, if he's still with us. I think we might have lost Brother Ajmal. I can't see him in the virtual studio. Because of the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? A lot of us, when I ask you what is maintaining family ties, right? A lot of us might think, well, I visit my uncle, he visits me. I give my auntie a gift and she gives a gift to me, right? And that's maintaining family ties. But that's not really maintaining family ties. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about family ties, it's quite the opposite. It's actually going and maintaining family ties and visiting someone who actually doesn't visit you, right? It's actually giving a gift to someone who actually doesn't give gifts to you, and you don't even give those gifts, right, with a view of receiving something back, right? So I think it's a shift or in our mentalities, the way we think. But I think we've got Brother Ajmal Masroor back, so let me go back to my guest and firstly thank them all for their patience over the commercial break. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ajmal Masroor, welcome back.
Wa alaikum salam.
A couple of questions for you, some quick fire questions really, inshallah. You were discussing before the commercial break emotional intelligence, right? And you described it for us, and it's lovely to hear that being described in that level of detail. My question for you would be to give some advice to our listeners. How do they go about, equipping themselves and becoming familiarized with this concept? Because it sounds like a very technical concept, but you've broken it down very simply for us. Jazakallah khair for that. And then also a practical question for you, right? Is there's a brother who's not speaking to his another sibling or a parent for whatever reason. What do you advise them, right? How do they overcome that pain burden, that barrier that is stopping them from connecting?
Okay, so the first answer to the question would be, the second part was the question that you've raised. How do we overcome the pain barrier, and how do we deal with our fear? So let me ask you a question in response. If somebody did something to you that hurt you deeply, what will you lose? What will you lose if you go to that person and say, I'm actually hurting very deeply by a particular behavior that you demonstrated? What will you lose? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, yeah. But it's very difficult to do that, isn't it?
But why is it difficult? Because what are you afraid of? You're afraid of the repercussion, the reprisal, loss of money, loss of... What will you lose? You lose nothing. And yet, if you, and this is very important, brothers and sisters, on the day of judgment, if I arrive with a mountain high of good deeds, to do with my salah, to do with my sawm, zakat, and hajj, and yet I've wronged people, I will have to pay those people with the wrongs that I've done using my good deeds as exchange. Eventually, I will run out of my good deeds and I will start taking their bad deeds and end up in hellfire. So if I have done wrong to somebody, I should go out of my way to ask for forgiveness from them. If somebody I have wronged and comes to me and says, you have wronged me, I should be humble enough to accept and say, I'm really sorry if I have wronged you. Please forgive me. This is a reciprocal process that Allah has very beautifully explained. Rasulullah has explained in many hadith that on the day of judgment, if you don't forgive one another, you'll be stuck. So our relationship with Allah is easier to manage, but our relationship with one another is more difficult. That's why when one of the companions of the Prophet of Allah was guaranteed to go to heaven, and the companion, one of the younger companions, very curious, wanted to find out why, and he found out the secret, and that is this companion did not go to sleep any night without forgiving everybody who had wronged him. This was the secret to Jannah. Now, brothers and sisters, if somebody has wronged you, you need to go and tell them, brother or sister, uncle, auntie, I've been hurt. The way to do this is to make a private attempt in booking a room for them, having an opportunity to sit down and have a discussion with them privately, making that time, and then actually saying to them, I've been hurt by your behavior. Please forgive me. I'm saying this to you. I'd like you to know that I'm hurting. And any human being who recognizes another human being hurting would automatically say, I'm really sorry if I've hurt you. I didn't mean that. Or attempt to clarify. So, brothers and sisters, ask for forgiveness and seek forgiveness from each other and forgive the other person. That's the only way you will find salvation in the hereafter.
Right, fantastic. Jazakallah, brother Ajmal Masroor. I want to welcome to the show also Sister Julie Siddiqui. Assalamu alaikum, sister, and welcome to Friday Night Live.
Walaikum salam. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Okay, good time to join this conversation. We've been discussing family ties, implications of cutting family ties, hurting one another. How do we overcome that barrier? How do we apologize? How do we seek forgiveness? How do we mend relationships? And of course, an integral component of relationships is, of course, the relationship between your husband and wife, brother and sister, mother and father, and so many combinations. What would your advice be to a daughter out there or a sister out there, perhaps, who's you at the back end of a strained relationship with another family member? Is it more difficult emotionally for women? I mean, I apologize if I'm being a bit biased here, but is it a bit more difficult for women to overcome that barrier and forgive because of their sensitivity and because of the emotions and generally known to be very emotional? Is it more difficult, or is it in fact an asset that they can actually forgive quicker because of the soft nature also, mashallah?
I mean, assalamu alaikum to everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think, it's always difficult, isn't it, when we generalize, and so we're always in danger of kind of upsetting someone. But I think in some ways you make a good point, which is that, of course, emotion is important, actually can also be very difficult. I think one thing that women often have, not always, but often have going for them maybe more than men, is that the natural kind of wanting to speak and listen, to speak to people, but also listen to what people have to say. Sometimes men find that harder. And in this kind of scenario that we're talking about, where people need to be able to, keep those connections going, those kind of qualities can actually be very, very helpful. I know from my own experience in our family, I'm the one, as opposed to my husband, who does a bit more of the kind of keeping things moving. I keep in touch with his cousins more than he does. And, that stuff is, I think that's also a very beautiful thing between a couple so I know whether he tells me often or not, he does appreciate me doing that stuff, because we know that we have to do it, right? I do it because I love it, but also I think it's a great thing between us that he knows that I do that because I want to do it. I love him. I love his family. So, that I think women can, I'm the one who buys all the birthday stuff, keeps the anniversaries in my diary. And those things, if we're talking about keeping ties, these things are really important, making people feel special, not forgetting people. So I think that women can bring a lot to a family, to a relationship, to a marriage through those things. Not always, of course, but I'm sort of generalizing, but I think I've seen that. So I think the other thing I wanted to say was, of course, families are messy. People, for example, if we talk about a family, you're talking about all the different bumps in the road that go with it. A family tree always makes me laugh in a way, because a family tree will be, straight lines.
Linear, exactly.
Of course, it never is, and as soon as you sort of have a divorce in the equation, or you have, a step family, or of course, if you get married, you then have in-laws and all the kind of complex stuff that comes with that. That for me is I think where the challenge often is. You're not talking about everybody being on the same page, and exactly what you're saying. That requires us to put our ego to one side, to kind of just take the higher road, as it were, and do the things that we don't maybe want to do. We might have. I think having difficult people in a family is harder than having difficult people in other parts of your life, because you can't walk away from your family, and we're told so many times by the Prophet, peace be upon him, and in the Quran itself, not to walk away from it. So it really forces us to go out of our comfort zone and and do that, especially when we've got difficult people that we're trying to navigate.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to come back to you with another question, actually, but I did forget to give an introduction. It's always good to give an introduction to our of our guests to our listeners, so they know exactly who we're speaking to. So, of course, Sister Julie Siddiqui is a community organizer, campaigner, activist, mashallah, and been working in the Muslim community for almost 25 years. Fantastic. I think Brother Ajmal Masroor has to leave now, unfortunately. But Brother Ajmal Masroor, if you, I know you have to leave very quickly. Last question, if I may.
Okay, go on.
Very quickly. So, Brother Ajmal Masroor, last question is: what would your advice be to a brother, or or to any of our listeners who are not on talking terms with another blood relative or a family term? Quick advice.
Go and talk to them. Simple. Pick up the phone. Send them a message saying, Salam alaikum. I'm really sorry. I've not spoken to you for so long. Can we talk? What will you lose? It's our fear. It's our own anxiety. Just talk. Pick up the phone and talk.
Wow, man. It couldn't have been shorter than that, man. Jazakallah
Allah bless you all.
Jazakallah khair. There you go, brother. Listeners, Ajmal Masroor's very simple advice: go and talk to them. And you know what? Let me go back to sisters now. It's good I've got all sister panelists now. You know, Brother Ajmal Masroor's advice: go and talk to them. It's so simple but so difficult. You know, it's so simple but so difficult because all of these, barriers go up, isn't it? And the most difficult thing is actually going up and having that conversation. Let me go to Sister Jihad very quickly, right? She's been patient for a while and listening to me. You know, you're advising and you're giving, advice to youngsters, to youth, right? How do you go and tell the youth, go and speak to your parents, or who have cut off their relationship with a parent for whatever reason?
I would like to actually start with the other way round. If we say that, if we train the young children from a young age to have that communication, it will grow with them. So I would, if I may, I would just direct the advice a little bit to the parents, because the children pick up the traits and pick up the behavior from the environment, right? So if we train the young people, or children from a young age to have that communication, that's why I mentioned earlier, daily meals are good way of doing this, having communication together, discussing things together, or specifically, making time for that. And with the pandemic now as well, with what's going on, we're spending a lot of time with our families, and this is good timing to spend time together, and not only just talking, but playing games together, finding fun ways of communicating together. If the children grow up in a family with this kind of communication, it will carry on with them. Now, also the other thing is that is very, very important is during communication, and that's something that Sister Julie mentioned, is learning to listen to one another. And the way we do that is that as parents, when we communicate with our children, we put all distractions away. And that includes phone distraction, any kind of distraction, putting it away so that the children can learn, can see that they are heard, first of all. And once they sense that they are heard, they will be willing to listen to others. So it's that behavior that we learn from the environment. And have we not learned it? How do we do that behavior? How do we conduct this behavior? And that's why I say it's very, very important from the family to train the children from a young age. If that is not available, if that was missing, of course, conflicts happen and all these issues happen in families, then I would work with the young people to help them learn these skills. But it would be much more beneficial, and it will be with the children for the rest of their lives had they learned it from a young age from the family. So that's why I find that it's very important for the family to play that role.
All right, Sakla, appreciate that. And Sister Julie, just coming back to yourself, I mean, as a community worker, campaigner, activist, mashallah, you've got your fingers in many different pies. You're probably mixing with all sorts of family backgrounds and family challenges and problems and all sorts of scenarios. How do you, what's the kind of practical advice do you give? How do you, someone who's emotionally hurt, been financially wronged, and other personal kind of examples like that. How do you counsel? How do you advise, people to repair those kind of relationships?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is where it gets complicated, isn't it? Because, as I say, stuff isn't cozy and nice always. And, we might have a sort of black and white list of do's and don'ts, and these are the wife's responsibilities and these are the husband's responsibilities or rights or whatever kind of relationship we're talking about. but then, you know, you throw in different things into the mix, and of course it isn't quite like that in real life. And the problem, I think, often is that we miss the fact that Islam, you know, we often say that Islam is a way of life, but what does that actually mean? And for me, when it comes to this kind of stuff, we have to take it back to the fact that it's supposed to be very holistic. So what I mean by that is, for example, if we have let's start off, I'll do both, don't worry. So I'm not going to just dig out the husbands here, but if we have a husband who is treating his wife harshly and doesn't have basic respect for her, and she's not feeling loved and supported, and that there's that holistic, you know, atmosphere in the home that we just heard about now, if that is the scenario that we're talking about, then yes, she may, for example, do her basic duty when it comes to his family, or to him even, or to others within the wider family, or to his mother. She may do the kind of tick box, you know, this is what my duties are supposed to be, so I'm going to do these. But it's not going to really work, is it? Because there's always going to be resentment. So if he's not providing, and he's being very difficult and not providing an atmosphere that encourages her to be the best version of herself, then she is only going to do the bare minimum when it comes to family ties, because family ties can be one of the things that's on the list. You know, be good to parents, family ties, be hospitable, you know, so you do the things, but not with the real good vibe around it. Let me say it like that. And if there is on the sort of flip side of that, if there is somebody who is, and I would say this to women because I think it can be a real problem. Often women get themselves into a cycle where they don't, for all sorts of reasons, develop a good relationship with their mother-in-law, for example. Now, it could be that you could tell me 101 reasons why you can't stand your mother-in-law, but in the end, she is your mother-in-law, and it's a very, very important relationship. And you have to do your, you know, you have to be able to go to bed at night, and when you die, hand on heart, saying you absolutely tried your best when it comes to that relationship with your husband's mother, however horrible you might think she is or not, or what. I think there's a really horrible cycle that women often get into, even with each other, where they kind of backbite about the mother-in-law. And I just think that just don't do it, because it never works. If you try and put your husband, i.e. the son, in between you and your mother-in-law and play one off against the other, it just doesn't work.
On that,
I think that's a really important thing to always try and remember.
On that note, sisters Julie Siddiqui and Jihad Mursi, thank you very much for your time this evening on Friday Night Live. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Right, listeners, that was an interesting conversation. We had Brother Ajmal Masroor, Sister Julia Siddiq, Jihad Mursi, and we were discussing the importance of family ties, right? And the dangers of cutting off family ties. Very, very important topic. If you've got any thoughts on that, 01582 481 822, 0794818822. But we are moving very, very swiftly on because we're approaching that half an hour mark. 26 minutes on the hour means commercial break, which means we need to move on to the next topic. Otherwise, we're going to be running out of time, right? So my next topic is some of you may have heard of this, and some of you may not have heard of this. But anyway, there has been a decision that has been made in Switzerland to ban the wearing of the burqa and the niqab in public places, right? Now, I don't know if any of our listeners are actually aware of that, but this has been, of course, been discussed for a while, right? And even though the next fact or statistic that I'm going to give you is very interesting, it should not make a difference at all. But I read in one report the number of sisters wearing niqabs in Switzerland, right, ranges from less than 30 to 130 individuals. Now, what was alarming was 130 individuals wearing niqab, and the country has a referendum on the issue. Is that serious? It's just incredible, isn't it? Now, I actually lived in Switzerland for a year, right, in Zurich. And I worked there for 1 year, and I have to confess, and I was in the masjid on a daily basis. Obviously, not the sisters wouldn't frequent that masjid, but I never saw a sister wearing a niqab. I saw a lot of sisters wearing hijab, but not one wearing niqab in my 1 year that I was in and out of Switzerland. So what's going on? Let's find out. We're going to be speaking to Sister Janina Rashidi, I believe, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, sister, for joining us from Switzerland. Now, sister, you work for the legal department of the Islamic Center, Islamic Central Council of Switzerland, right? And
exactly, yes.
And you're soon finishing off your master's degree at the University of Bern. Mother of one, mashallah, and of course, alhamdulillah, you also wear the niqab. So how do you take to this news and what's going on in Switzerland? Because I mean, this comes on the back end of an earlier decision that was taken with regards to the minarets and the azan in Switzerland, right?
Yes, exactly. So in 2009, we had a referendum on banning minarets in Switzerland, building new ones. There had been 3 before. And since 2009, the building of minarets is forbidden by constitutional law. Yeah. And now in 2021, we had the ban of face coverings in public spaces.
Yeah.
And this is the situation we have now in Switzerland. Not very pleasant.
Not very present, but like I said, I mean, I used to fly in on Monday and fly back out on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So I was only there 3 days a week, 4 days a week in Zurich. And I found it a pleasant place to be there whilst I was there. People seem generally quite friendly. What's driving this right-wing agenda? It can't be the people, is it? Or is it the politicians, and is it elections or something?
No, I think what we have in Switzerland, I mean, this issue is not a right-wing issue. We should say that clearly. In Switzerland, the Islamophobic agenda has actually defunded into mainstream society. Although Swiss people are not very offensive, like most of them, do not attack you directly, but there is this mainstream Islamophobia that is actually present in society, and we can feel that on an everyday basis. And it even got worse now. A lot of sisters, either they're wearing hijab or wearing niqab, experienced a lot of attacks this week since the referendum last Sunday.
Oh, subhanallah. So tell me, sister, I mean, in terms of the Central Council of Switzerland, Islamic Central Council of Switzerland, what's been your reaction, response, and how are you dealing with at least not only the Islamophobia in terms of nationally, but with the government? Is there any form of communication? Is there any campaigning? What's going on, and what are your options?
Yes. So we actually got into the campaign before the referendum, obviously, because we wanted to. We didn't want this law, obviously, to be implemented. The government, so we have a federal system in Switzerland, but the Swiss government consists of 7 presidents, Bundespräsident. It's not quite like other countries. These all were against this law. They said it's not necessary. We don't have a problem with people wearing face coverings in public. We can just do that on a regional basis if there is a certain problem. So they actually were against this law, but still the voters voted in favor of this law. So they have to now stick to that. The law is in the constitution, and now we have to wait until the cantons, so the regional the regional districts actually work out an implementation law, because it cannot be a Swiss law, but it has to be a regional law to actually implement this ban on a regional basis. Right. Yeah.
And I read somewhere that just like what happened in France is that some of the Islamic institutions are of course fully supportive of sisters who continue to wear the burqa and the niqab, and if they're fined, in fact, they're setting up a pot of support, financial support, to pay the fines off, mashallah.
Yeah, this is what we actually did now. We started directly after the referendum. We started a money pool to collect money to pay the fines for those sisters who will be concerned. Right. And also to actually, if we have the first case of this, this law being implemented on a sister, we're going to use all national remedies to go against this law, because in Switzerland, we don't have the possibility to directly check a law in front of courts, but we have to go through a certain case.
Okay, Sister Janina, Jazakallah khair. Unfortunately, we had a very short time and we've run out of time. But Jazakallah khair, continue your campaign and inshallah ta'ala, best of luck.
Barakallahu feekum. Barakallahu feekum.
Okay, listeners, that was Sister Janina from Switzerland. We'll come back to that story when we come back from the commercial break. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. We have to go into a commercial break. You're with me, Hafiz Shaban, on Friday Night Live. We'll come back. When we come back, we're going to be discussing Shamima Begum, a case. Don't go away.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Isha.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज इशा का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 721110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
Would you like to sponsor the azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481 810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. This is Friday Night Live, and I am your host, Hafiz Shaban. It is Friday, the 12th of March, 2021, and corresponding, of course, to the blessed month of Rajab, 28th of Rajab. We're right at the end of Rajab, and we are on the footsteps, on the verge of Shaban. Subhanallah. A month away from Ramadan. As usual, we are broadcasting live on Luton on 105.1 FM. We are broadcasting across our partner stations, Sheffield Link FM. Welcome and salams to the people of Sheffield, Peterborough, Derby, and Nottingham. And indeed, nationally to all of our listeners across the country. Those of you good old people who are listening to us on Facebook, YouTube, salams to all of you. You've been a bit quiet this evening. I want to hear more from you, inshallah. We've had a couple of participations through some of our platforms. It will be great to hear from you a lot more. Do remember to like us on tonight's show on our Facebook platforms, inshallah ta'ala, on our social media platforms rather. 01582 481 822. 01582 481 822. Actually, I didn't ask the question to the producers, but if you call, I suspect someone will answer that number and they will put you through to me on that hotline number. So do try it. 01582 481 822. I haven't heard a caller for a very long time since COVID kicked in, and we have been broadcasting remotely. Anyway, those of you that want to connect via the social media platforms, it's 07779 07779 481 822. And my producer has confirmed, yes, we can take callers. So if there's any brave listeners out there, 01582 481 822, you want to say salams and want to speak to us live on air, then please feel free to call us, inshallah. Right, we've had a packed show this evening, a lot of topics that we've been discussing. But let's move on, because we've got the last half an hour and we're going to be covering a rather controversial story that has unfolded in recent weeks. Now, it hasn't had a lot of coverage, right, for a number of reasons, obviously, but let's give it some coverage and let's discuss it. And I'm talking about the case of Shamima Begum, right? So this is, of course, on the back end of, let me just get my notes up here, the UK Supreme Court. All right, the UK Supreme Court has apparently failed Shamima Begum, according to Human Rights Watch, right? This is, of course, the United Kingdom's highest court, delivering a shocking blow to justice, according to Human Rights Watch, when it ruled that Shamima Begum could not return to Britain to challenge the government's stripping of her citizenship. Now, some people have called this dual, right, justice system in the UK. Number of headlines. The court ruling shows there are grades of citizenship, according to Shamima Begum's family lawyer. Some tabloid press are celebrating. Others, of course, are very critical of the British government. And quite frankly, the reality is that justice can't be done in either way, because you either allow a a UK citizen to return and challenge the allegations against her in the court of law and give her back her nationality, her citizenship, right, to come back to a country where she was born and has family connections. So it's a bit of a strange one, because, of course, only previously the courts had ruled that she was able to do that. So it's a bit of an up and down. And let's try to make heads and tails out of what's happening, and let's speak to some experts. Right, who have we got to speak to, inshallah? So firstly, we've got Brother Basharat Ali, mashallah. So Brother Basharat Ali from Aman Solicitors, I believe, has recently been discussing this particular case. So we're going to be going to Brother Basharat Ali very, very shortly. And then we've also got Brother Kerry Bulivan from Cage, who's the Cage spokesman, inshallah. So assalamu alaikum, gentlemen, Brother Basharat and Brother Kerry. All right, so let's go to Brother Basharat first, inshallah. Brother Basharat, mashallah, you have been discussing this case recently, and mashallah, as someone from the legal profession yourself. I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for me. I mean, at first, yes, she can, and now she can't. So where do we stand in all of this?
Well, there are two aspects to this. Firstly, the laws themselves. When you look at the law which is being applied to her, these laws have been around for a very long time, but in its current form, last 2-3 decades, the ability to deprive people of citizenship effectively is based on the principle there are some who are real British citizens and they won't lose their citizenship.
Right.
And there are others who are not so real and they can lose their citizenship. So the actual law is a problem.
Right, so I'm confused. What do you mean? Some are actual British citizens, and I'm not. Well, my parents are from Pakistan, so am I actual British citizen of Bashara, or according to your definition, or not?
Okay, so put simply, when you create a law, or pass a law through Parliament, which effectively allows the government an executive decision, subject to challenge in the courts, to take citizenship away. What you're saying is that if your parents or grandparents were born or are from a particular part of the world where you can hold dual nationality, then your citizenship can be taken away on the basis that the Home Office think it's conducive to the public good. The legal test is a very low one.
Wow.
So effectively, it only applies to people who are dual nationals. Otherwise, your citizenship would not be taken away from you. And it only applied to a certain kind of dual national that I can come to in a moment.
Right. So you're saying if my name was John Bloggs and I was actually born and bred in Luton as well, my parents, then it would be a completely different ballgame.
Absolutely, because you wouldn't have another nationality, and therefore you would be what I call a real British citizen, because citizenship is something which is very fundamental. In my opinion, it should not be something that can be taken away. If people commit criminal offences or terrorism or whatever, then you try them as you would try a real British citizen.
Well, the British government's going to challenge that, Brother Bashar. They're going to say, look, no one forced Sister Shamima Begum to go off to Syria. She went there, she made a decision, and it was a state of war. We know what was happening in Syria. To go out there was on the blacklist. She did that. She's got to stay there now.
Okay, I'm not really supporting what she did. She was a foolish young girl who thought she knew what she was doing, and her friends went out there. But look, let's just make a comparison.
Yeah.
Anybody born in the island of Ireland, Northern Ireland,
Yeah.
until 2005 was by law a dual national. You were an
Right.
Irish citizen and a British citizen. In Northern Ireland, 3,300 people were killed in what they call the Troubles, not terrorism, the Troubles in Northern Ireland. It's like kids scrumping for apples or, playing truant. That's what it was. It was the Thatcher government was nearly wiped out in the Brighton bombing. Soldiers, Mountbatten was blown up, the Queen's cousin. Now, I have never heard of somebody from Northern Ireland, whether they're a Republican or a loyalist, ever having lost their citizenship, and many dozens, if not hundreds, were convicted of terror. So this is where let's shine the light on this, and the British government can say what it wants. It's the law is unjust law.
All right, let me go to Brother Kerry. Brother Kerry, why is Boris Johnson scared of letting Shamima Begum back into the UK?
So, can you repeat the question?
I said, why is Boris Johnson scared of allowing Shamima Begum? I mean, she was 15 when she went to Syria. Why is he scared from allowing her to return and face justice in the courts of law here?
The fact of the matter is that we at the moment we face a two-tier justice system. We have a justice system that allows secret courts and secret hearings and even secret trials for certain cases and for certain people and for people from certain backgrounds. And we have citizenship stripping for those people. And then for others, they're protected by habeas corpus, by a jury and the right to a fair day in court and a fair trial. And this separation at the moment, and the fact that I could undertake exactly the same actions as Shamima or any of those other people, and they could not take my citizenship, shows that there is a huge disparity here. And let's not. I mean, the brother, mashallah, he was explaining it very, very well. But you don't need to be a dual national to have your citizenship stripped. You only need to be eligible for a second nationality.
Right.
So, in that regard, almost everyone from an ethnic minority is now less of a British citizen than anybody who is not from an ethnic minority, because many countries have birthright citizenship where you would be eligible. Even if you've never lived in Pakistan, you would still be eligible for Pakistani citizenship. And in theory, therefore, that allows the British government the right to strip you of your nationality.
Right. But isn't it the case? What if Bangladesh said we don't want Shamima Begum?
Which is exactly what they have said.
Exactly. So she can't go to Bangladesh. So what happens to this so-called moral ground, or this legal loophole that the British government is trying to deploy and use?
The British government is, I mean, your other guests will probably be a better person to explain this, but is most likely in breach of international law and treaties that they've signed around not making people stateless. Because Shamima is at the moment stateless, caught in a prison camp for all intents and purposes, where she will receive no justice and no trial, and that is seeming to be an indefinite situation. Now, even if one thinks that, well, we don't want her here, we don't want her to have a fair trial, the Kurds are people who have assisted our government and are, on paper, allies of our government, and yet we are forcing them to hold and maintain and look after hundreds, and in the case of Europeans in general, thousands of Europeans, with no legal remedy and no end in sight.
Okay, incredible. All right, let me go back to Brother Bashar for some legal clarity. You don't have to go into the full details, Brother Bashar, but if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it the previous court, was it the Court of Appeal that said Shamima Begum can return? And now it's the Supreme Court saying that she cannot return. So is that the final judgment now?
Well, no, the appeal has not been finally determined.
Right, okay.
Provisions are somewhat complex. But
Brother Kerry, can I ask you to go on mute, actually, because we're getting a lot of interference. Okay, there we go.
So the simple point is that this appeal has been stayed till it's time that Shamima Begum can participate in the appeal and be able to have what's called a fair trial. Now, the short point is on nationality, either you are or you are not a national. You've got to be careful about conflating that with the eligibility of getting a passport. So the way the law works is, according to the law of Bangladesh, if you had a Bangladeshi parent, you would be you are a Bangladeshi citizen. Like in Pakistan, I don't have to apply for citizenship, or you wouldn't. If your parents are born there or Pakistani parents, you would be entitled to citizenship as a matter of law. Now, what Bangladesh made clear is she's not welcome. She's never going to be given any status or citizenship. So de facto, as a matter of fact, she's got no international citizenship, and therefore she is effectively in a state of limbo. And that's where the situation. So, as a matter of principle, stripping people of citizenship is a very unjust law.
Right. Let me go back to Brother Kerry. Hopefully, we get no interference. It sounds very politically motivated to me, right? Call me sinister, call me pessimistic, or whatever you want to call me. But I smell some politics here. What is the underlying agenda here behind, making an example out of Shamima Begum, Brother Kerry?
Well, the politics of the war on terror and the racism. Hello, is that okay?
Yep.
The politics of the war on terror and the racism that underpins it has been going on now for 20 years, for longer than someone like Shamima's even been alive. So we can't suddenly divorce what's been going on for all of these years from the wider context of the war on terror. Now, even if she was to return, and even if she was to have a hearing, it would be in a SIAC court, which is a Special Immigration Appeals Committee, which is a secret court in Chancery Lane, where she wouldn't be allowed to select her own lawyers. She wouldn't be able to have Brother Ashraf defending her, because even if she did want him to be her lawyer, they would be excluded from the vast majority of the hearings. Now, with these and with control orders that later became TPIMs, we can see definitively over hundreds of cases in 20 years now, that they have only been used on Muslims, with the one exception of a citizenship stripping of a Russian spy who was sleeping with MPs to get information for the Kremlin. Now, when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases, and one case where they did it to a non-Muslim, it becomes very clear the Islamophobia that we're dealing with here.
And you can choose your own lawyer, but the secret evidence part, what's called closed procedure, once we've spoken to you and seen the secret evidence, then that lawyer on that part of the case cannot communicate with you, but you would have a conventional solicitor and barrister and your legal team, which you can choose.
Right.
So you see, when you look at this, people like, what's his name, Mesa Gifford, he went to court with the PKK. The PKK are a SDF, sorry, the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are widely linked to the PKK.
Right. This is here in the UK, Bashar, yeah?
He Mesa Gifford is his pseudonym, his real name he doesn't disclose. He was a guy who worked in the city. He was given the 5-star treatment. So there are some terrorists we like and other terrorists we don't like. Because Turkey, which has been a NATO ally of 60 years or 70 years nearly, says that the SDF are and the PKK are the one and the same. And therefore, this man wasn't really challenged. And there are many dual national citizens, British, Israeli, who go and serve in the Israeli Defense Force.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's no action taken against them. Turks going and serving in the Turkish army, especially when there was a war in the south of the country against the PKK. So the truth of the matter is that the law is the problem, and the application, I mean, the decision by the Supreme Court is very harsh. And part of it is a very serious problem is this. We should defer to politicians, because their accountability for protecting the public is at the ballot box.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
Priti Patel and Sajid Javed, in my book, are not people I would want taking decisions and trusting them to get it right.
Right. Okay. Let me go back.
This is actually. Sorry,
yeah, brother Paddy, we're
if I
getting
might add a little point there.
Yeah, you can, but we're getting interference from you, Akhi, man.
Oh, sorry, bro.
Not audio, not in terms of what you're contributing to the conversation, but the background interference, bro.
Sorry, is that better now?
Yeah, that's better. Go on.
Okay, cool. Sorry. It's worth noting as well that the ruling that's come down breaks a really important precedent of a democratic state, which is that the separation of powers. Normally, if somebody has committed a crime and has done something wrong, they should be held to account by the legal and the judicial process, which should be separate and apolitical and away from elected officials. And this creates a system where the elected officials make a ruling, and now in a very, very dangerous Supreme Court ruling, Supreme Court said, no, we shouldn't challenge them. We should defer to their judgment on these issues.
I think that's what Brother Bashar was saying earlier. That was the point that I was making earlier. He wants to come back into the conversation. I'm going to let you come in, Brother Bashar. Just give me a minute. But what I want to say to Brother Kerry is that, I mean, we've talked about the political agenda here. I mean, I've seen a number of articles from Human Rights Watch organizations, right, calling this out, right, as a travesty of due process and justice, right? So there is some campaigning going on in that, to that extent. To what extent, Brother Kerry, is this just another, a name to that list, right, of campaigns that we've got to fight? Because the government's quite adamant to make to make it, quite frankly, a story of these kind of cases to ensure that future younger generations don't make the same mistake.
The problem is, we've seen time and again that this idea of creating a scapegoat and making an example of people never resolves the issue. And we saw this with the internment of the IRA and detention without trial in as the brother said, the Troubles. All that does is harden people to the fact that there is no justice and that they're not going to be treated equally, which then opens up the door to people who do have malign intentions to come and speak to them and try and convince them of other things. I mean, look, we need to go right back to the beginning. Why did 3 15-year-old girls feel that they were more at home in Syria than in Whitechapel? Now, that's a fundamental question that until we get to the bottom of that, we're not going to understand how we can resolve these issues in the long term in this country.
All right, appreciate it. But Brother Bashar, I know you wanted to come in earlier. Sorry, bro. I
You know,
didn't.
just a clarification. No, what the Supreme Court has said is you give them more deference. Ultimately, a court still has to make a decision, but the degree of deference to politicians is very worrying. I mean, if Duck Pond scandal and every other scandal since then, most of these politicians are not trustworthy at all, and if they're all going to be campaigning for re-election, can you imagine a Home Secretary saying, "Oh no, we're not going to be stripping anybody of citizenship. It's terrible. I'm going to abolish the citizen stripping law." No chance. They're going to do each other.
It's a vote winner, isn't it, Brother Bashara?
Well, you know, bashing brown people or Muslims or black people, it's never going to lose you votes nowadays.
Okay, Brother Bashara. Okay, what's the conversation then in the legal quarters, right? You know, with these kind of stories. I mean, it also opens up a window of opportunity, does it not, to engage and discuss and what are the? I mean, when you've got the Supreme Court almost closing the doors upon you, there's not much more you can do, is there?
Well, no, and the point is that there are people who have spoken to the legal profession who are deeply unhappy about this, but there are many who said, you know, serves her right sort of thing, which if it was your 15-year-old child that did something like that, I would like to see how you'd respond in those circumstances. The fact that she was a groomed child, treated as a groomed child. She was groomed by a bunch of criminals online who fed, you know, a yarn about right, so about this place being Islamic and what have you, and
exactly.
So the point here is that people in the legal profession generally who I've spoken to, very upset. And look, we were all surprised. To be very frank with you, very few of us predicted this. We were thinking, you know what, they'll endorse what the Court of Appeal did because it's the right decision.
Okay, Brother Kerry, any grounds to argue the case on a humanitarian basis? I mean, 15-year-old, come on, 15-year-old, you know, do silly things, make silly mistakes. It looks like the government hasn't got a heart to actually even consider that. It's obviously political expediency, and it is what you know wins you votes at the end of the day, is it not? Brother Kerry, I think we've lost Brother Kerry. Okay,
well, I'll tell you.
Go on, Brother.
Look, the point here is that there are a couple of brown Home Secretaries that did this, but Tories and Labour have both been guilty of it, and the legal test, what you have to show to strip citizens of citizenship, has been getting more and more watered down.
Right. Okay, so that's very interesting, actually.
Because
you have to remember. You have to remember as well that you can be stripped of your citizenship not just for a terrorism case, but for being not conducive to the public good, which is such a broad and minimal basis to have such a wide-ranging and devastating power.
Right. Okay. All right, gents. Unfortunately, I think we're almost running out of time. But a last quick question for Brother Bashara. Mashallah, from Aman Solicitors. I see you've been doing a lot. You've been taking advantage of technology at the moment and doing a lot of online seminars. What's been happening in your domain? Has it been a busy period, this lockdown, Brother Bashara?
It's been interesting. There's another decision that came out this week, which you may want to cover, which is the license to kill provision, where the Court of Appeal upheld a law which allows the security services to license serious criminality in gathering intelligence of public interest. It's a very profound decision.
So I remember we covered that a couple of weeks ago, if not months ago. So what was the decision that was made now? Has it just been endorsed, has it?
Yeah, that's been endorsed by the Court of Appeal. So potentially that will end up in the Supreme Court as well.
Right.
Very profound, and there's a worrying trend that seems to be nodding through very, very challenging and difficult.
Right. And have you lawyer brothers been busy over this lockdown period, Akhi, or has it been difficult times?
Oh, okay. I mean, generally speaking, look, everybody's been affected who depends on clients. So, but alhamdulillah is khair razaqeen. So we get what we get and we carry on. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but there have been benefits as well in reflecting and doing other things.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Brother Bashar Ali. Good talking to you, and Brother Kerry. Jazakallah khair for joining us this evening. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Jazakallah khair, brothers.
Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, so that is Friday Night Live, folks. Inshallah, with me, Hafiz Shaban. Alhamdulillah, been an interesting evening. Last 2 hours have just flown by. We've got a minute. We've got less than 30 seconds almost to the clock. Inshallah, Jazakallah khair for joining us. As always, until next week, really, it's me signing out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Don't forget to always tune in. Leave us your comments and your thoughts. Inshallah, if you like any of the conversations, then great. Give us the thumbs up. If you don't, I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your thoughts, inshallah. And if you've got any suggestions for any stories in the future, you know what, feel free to reach out to us on our platforms, inshallah ta'ala. Again, once again, until next week, inshallah ta'ala, signing out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.